Good afternoon. Once again, it is Keisha J. Kelly, and I am here. I am your host and your founder of Black College Experience. We took a week off last week as we wrapped up the ending of Women's History Month in March, which was a great month to highlight everything that was going on with women in Black college sports, and women that's doing the thing over in sports in the industry as a whole. Well, we kind of flipped the scripts and we're doing something different tonight. We got a story from a Jaguar, my alma mater, Southern University, his alma mater before it was my alma mater. And this story, I feel like, is one that needs to be told. Sometimes we get gems. We get those old school stories. And today I feel like we have a gem. We do have Mr. Nathaniel Davis Mr. Nathaniel Davis Jr. that's gonna join us here on Black College Experience and tell us about his time when he was in college, his Black college experience. And guess what, guys? He played for the great Ace Mumford. So I'm not going to give the story away. It's not my story to tell. Of course, it's Mr. Davis' story to tell. So I'm going to go ahead and bring Mr. Davis on. We're going to get this kicked off.
Hi, Keisha.
Hey, Mr. Davis.
It is a pleasure to be with you. I thank you for this invitation.
Thank you for joining us. Your daughter told me so much about you. She told me you had a story to tell, and I'm just so excited to actually have you here as I share with the rest of Jaguar Nation that we're going to have a great on the show tonight.
Well, this is an extra treat for me. I didn't know that you were a Jaguar yourself.
I am. I'm on down the line, Mr. Davis. I'm 2003.
Okay.
I'm 2003, but I am definitely a Jaguar to the soul. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's good. Well, actually, I'm from a small town. I was born in a little place called Okeechobee, Florida.
Okay.
And what got me interested in college, there were six of us, and my oldest sister, Emma, went to, at that time, they called FAMC, which was Florida A&M now.
Okay.
And she would come home and she would tell us about all of the new things that she had experienced, living in a dormitory, making your own rules, going to bed when you want to, and all that, going to class if you wanted to go, and football and basketball, all of the sports, all of the different people that you meet. And it just sort of made all of us interested in going to college. Another thing too, they had, just like we had the Bayou Classic, at that time they had what they called the Orange Blossom Classic, where Florida A&M invited a black school, and they played in the Orange Bowl in New Orleans. I mean, in Miami. And I had relatives living nearby, and we would go catch the train. We would go down to the parade and go to the game. And that sort of got us thinking about college and going. And I finished high school in Fort Pierce, Florida. Okay. And I had my senior year, I got a letter from Florida A&M saying that I had a full scholarship.
Okay.
And I said, wow, and I'm showing all my friends, my coach, everybody at school, that they got a full scholarship to Florida A&M. And I was excited. So my brother at the time was graduating from Florida A&M.
Okay.
And he said, come up and visit with me during the Christmas holidays, and I'll take you over to meet the coach, let you see the campus.
Okay.
Well, some things happened when I got to Tallahassee and went to see the coach. He decided that I was too small to play rattler football. That was devastating to me.
Wow.
So I had some friends. There were some friends of mine that had graduated from Lincoln Park in my hometown that were going to Southern. So they said, well, why don't you come and just go along with us? We'll talk to Coach Mumford and we'll see what he says. So they talked to Coach, and Coach said, well, invite him and we'll see what happens. Coach Mumford was a very smart coach. He could ask certain questions and get information that he needed. So I never met Coach Mumford. Just my friends spoke with him, and he invited me to come to Baton Rouge to try out for be a walk-on in Southern's football team. I had another problem. My dad
Didn't
didn't
want
want
you
me.
at Southern.
he
Didn't
didn't
want
want,
you at
he
Southern.
didn't
He
want
did
me.
not want you in the bayou.
The problem is it was too far for him. He said,
Okay.
that's 1,000 miles, boy, that's too far for you to be going. Talking about going to college with no money and no scholarship. So it took me 6 months to convince my father to let me come to Southern. Well, when I got to Southern and met Coach Mumford, he was a strict man. He was a perfectionist. He believed in hard work, no nonsense guy. But he allowed me to go out for the football team, and I practiced for 4 days. And Coach Mumford called me up to his office and said, "Son, I've seen you practice. I think you're going to make an outstanding football player. I got one scholarship left, and I'm going to give it to you."
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
So what was that feeling like? Well, I mean, the last scholarship, what was that like?
elation. I tell you, but you know, it was good that I didn't go to Florida A&M because looking back at my life, I can tell that God had a plan for me, and it was not in Tallahassee. It was in Baton Rouge because, like I said, 4 days and an athletic scholarship for 4 years. I had a chance to meet a little bright-eyed, smart girl from North Louisiana, and we've been married 57 years.
Go ahead, Mr. Davis. Wow.
Had 4 little beautiful girls, and had an opportunity to be employed, and things have just worked out for us as a result of being at Southern University. Now, my experience as a college student, I found that teachers were very personable. They were interested in us learning. They were interested in your achievement in class, as well as on the athletic field or court or whatever you were doing. They kept up with you. And I remember I had a math teacher, Miss Jenkins, that graduated from Jackson State, but she was on the math faculty at Southern University. And there were many athletes in her math class because we all were registered before school started because we were on campus early to keep us from having to stand in line because we had practices. Coach Mumford didn't believe in you being late for practice or missing practice. So we did all of our registration before school started. So there were many athletes in Ms. Jenkins' math class, but she knew us by name. She knew what our problems were. She took her time to help us. And that's what we found at Southern University. You will find at a Black college.
Absolutely.
They know what you need, and they know how to go about helping you to develop.
Very personable. Very personable. And it is. It's like a one-on-one. A lot of times people don't understand. It's a one-on-one connection with a professor, and they actually care. They care about what you're doing. They care about your grades. They care about you being in that school.
Yes. And I tell my girls all the time, if you graduate from an HBCU, you're ready for the world.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. You do. It's because there's so many things that you endure. And the funny thing is that we talk about the things that we went through in our undergrad, and most of the things are similar. We talk about the financial aid and the things that happened back then. And then we look back and we laugh and we realize that those things didn't break us. They made us who we are. So we live to tell that story to our children, and our children tell their children. And it's just like the story continues to go on and on and on. So now you went to Southern, and that was around the civil rights era, around civil rights time?
Yes.
What was that like?
I was a freshman in 1959.
Whew, okay.
All right. Long time ago. But one of the reasons my father didn't want me to come so far, I had to ride a Greyhound bus.
Okay.
And they were pulling Black men off the bus, beating them and all that kind of thing. Rosa Parks had just started, her movement, Martin Luther King and her movement. They were having sit-ins, and we at Southern University, students were marching to the state capitol, protesting and whatnot. So yes, we had a lot going, but we got through it, and God just protected us because that was a wrong that needed to be corrected. And so yes, we had meetings early in the morning, 1 o'clock in the morning. They knock on everybody's door. We got a meeting in the lobby. Come on down. Let's talk about the situation. And we're planning a march to the state capitol, to Chris store, and all of those kinds of things. So it was a very interesting time, and the people in the community also joined in. We had at that time, that was a black-owned bus line in the Scotlandville area that picked people up and took them to work in downtown and all, and they would volunteer the use of their buses to take students wherever the sit-ins would be and whatever. So it was a good time at Southern. It was tensed, but it was a good time.
What was their activism? What was there a lot of student activism? Was there athletic to doing activism around that time?
Well, Coach Mumford, like I said, he was very strict.
Okay.
Now, he said, now, I got you here to play sports and go to school. Now, if you have time to do these other things, it's quite all right. But when I call a meeting, when it's time for practice, I want you to be where you're supposed to be.
Gotcha.
But we were able to work around all of that and still get the job done. And there were others, if your sport was not in season at that time, and then you could certainly involve, because if you notice on Black campuses, students follow athletes.
Absolutely.
Yes, and if they're smart enough and they're a leader, they have that leadership skills, other students will follow them. So when you're on your best behavior, then the other students are on their best behavior, and that's one of the things that Coach Mumford taught his athletes. We're not gonna it look different now. You had to be clean shaven. You had to have your hair trimmed properly, have on the right clothes, no shirts hanging out, and you got to be mannerable. And but it did a lot for the rest of our lives. It helped us all, and so I owe a lot to, well, of course, my parents and my high school and Southern University, and the people that I met there. I remember when I was growing up, there were many of our teachers that had graduated from Bethune-Cookman in Daytona. And I think I was in 6th grade, and I was a crossing guard. When you go out to the street corner and you let students.
Yes.
Yes. Anyway, all of the students that had done work at school, they decided they want to take us on an educational field trip. So at the end of the year, they took us, they got a bus load of us, and they took us to Bethune-Cookman to visit, just to see the campus and meet some people, watch kids go to class and ask questions and whatnot. At the end of our visit, we went to this office, and there was this old gray-headed lady in there. Come to find out, it was Mary McLeod Bethune.
Oh, wow.
And she told us she gave us some very important information. She said, children, let me tell you something. Continue your education. Get a good education, because what you have in your head, nobody can take away from you. And that, along with all of those other things I mentioned, helped me decide that I'm going to go to college and I'm going to do the best that I can do. Saying, when I have my family, I'm going to teach them to do the best that they can do. So I've had a good life.
And met a lot of people, I see.
Oh, yes. Look, I didn't know what I was doing or who I was meeting, but all of those things came into play. I had a chance to, while I was playing football at Southern, I had a chance to go to Gremlins and Jackson and Tennessee State and all those friends, meet those coaches, and meet players and whatnot, meet other athletes at Southern and other places. It's been a grand life, you know. I enjoyed it.
So
And we even had we were national champions, black national champions in 1960. Dr.
so what
Clark.
was that like? What was that like?
Wow.
Because now we know how it is. What was that like back in 1960? And
And
how would you compare that to like present day championships?
well, in 1960, we were 9-0,
Okay.
and won 9 games, and we played Prairie View, and they beat us. But the fact is, we had beaten everybody else. We'd beaten
Mhm.
Florida A&M, Jackson, Tennessee State, Alcorn, everybody. But we were national champions, and we didn't know that the university was going to purchase gold rings for us.
Mhm.
So in the spring of the year, in the spring of 1961, Dr. Clark, Felton Clark, called a convocation
Mhm.
for university, asked everybody to come to the convocation. They had us to come on stage, and they presented each of us with a gold ring with national champion, Southern University, 1960. And that was mountaintop back then for each of us. And there were other awards that we received. Let me see if I can show you this ring.
I would say she told me you had the ring, the jacket, everything. Come on, let's see it, Mr. Davis, because she told me you had some gear over there.
All right, all right.
Jacket, belt buckle, everything.
Where? Where? All right, okay. This is my ring.
Okay, so can everybody see that? I can see it perfectly on this side, and it's still in mint condition.
Well, a lot of the engraving is worn off. When I was
Okay.
younger, I wore it everywhere and did everything with it. But it had national champions, national on one side, champions on the other side, and had 1960 written in it. They also gave us a blanket.
Talked about the blanket
with our letter, and let's see if I can show you that. Okay.
Is that it right there?
There you go.
Oh, that's nice.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
And also, we got belt buckles. With our names and the year and whatnot. Those are the kinds of awards that they were getting. Now, the only thing that we got in a scholarship was a meal card and your books and whatever normal things that a student has. And they gave us a check for $10 for the last year all the month.
I can't imagine. I cannot imagine $10 lasting the entire month.
Well, when gasoline was 19 cents a gallon, and you could do pretty good. Of course, you're on campus. You got 3 meals a day.
Correct.
And your clothes, you take your clothes to the laundry, and you got your paper and your books and your composition tablets and all those kinds. You got everything you need. So $10. Some of us had some of that left at the next time, but of course it was some of them spent it up the same night. But that's the way it goes. But
Mr. Davis,
yes.
What was it like playing for Coach Mumford? Because we know the stadium is named after him, and it's so legendary and most winningest coach in Southern's history. You can actually say, hey, I played for Coach Mumford. Many people can't. What was that like?
It was a joy. Coach Mumford was serious about what he did, but he was funny. I remember we were scrimmaging one day, and there was this fellow that was playing on defense in front of me, and I got ready to block. He decided he wanted to jump over me to get to the quarterback. As he jumped in the air, I raised up, and there he was upside down on my shoulder. Coach Mumford blew his whistle and stopped practice. He said, "Davis, if you ever do that again, I'm going to give you something." I said, "What you going to give me, Coach?" He said, "See those stadium lights over there?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "I'm going to give them to you. They're going to be Davis lights." But he gave the lights to everybody. I remember one time he gave the Mississippi River Bridge to some fella for doing something. He was a comedian, and but we enjoyed playing football for him because we knew that he had our best interests. The freshmen had to carry these heavy blocking dummies. These things were about 150 pounds, stand up about 4 feet tall. He sent 2 freshmen over to get this blocking dummy, and one was on each side of the dummy. And they were bringing the dummy to put the dummy in the line. Coach Mumford say, "Here come 3 dummies." The smartest ones in the middle.
Oh wow! Well,
all in fun.
That's hilarious.
But Coach Mumford was interested, and he would go to your class to be sure
that you were excelling.
Until you were going to class. He got your grades. When grades came out, he wanted to know how you were doing in your class. So went to the dormitories to see how you were behaving in the dormitories. So he was a very caring man, but he was a workaholic. On Sunday, you would find him in his office working out football strategy, plans for practice. We would even have a series of plays at the kickoff at the beginning of the game. We knew exactly the first set of plays that we were going to run. We even scored many times the first play of the game because we had it. And he would practice. You would run that play over and over and over. Sometimes you'd run one play 10 times. Run it. He had a gravel voice. Run that play again. Somebody misses block. Let's do it again. Run that play one more time. And we'd run that play again. You had to get it right because you knew you could do it with your eyes closed. Excellent. He was an excellent coach. I owe a lot to him.
So now we know the rivalry between Grambling and Southern, Jackson State and Southern. What was that rivalry like between Southern and Grambling back then?
Oh my goodness, Southern and Grambling rivalry. At the time, you could Gremlinites would catch the train from Ruston or wherever, and they would stop. The train would stop in Scotlandville, right in front of Sewell's store, right at that intersection where Popeyes was, and they stopped the train right there, and the students would get out. The train would arrive in Scotlandville at 5 o'clock in the morning. Students would get off the train and walk up on campus, yelling and screaming and talking about how bad they were going to beat Southern. But of course, very seldom did they do it. But anyway, it has always been a rivalry between Southern and Grambling. Of course, being in the same state, many of our players had relatives going to Grambling and vice versa. So even today, I had to marry a girl who came from a family of Southernites instead of
and do the Gremlinites.
I wouldn't let any of my daughters go to Grambling.
No.
But it was quite a rivalry. Same thing with Jackson State. But everywhere Southern went, they drew a crowd. They drew a crowd. Many times we would have more fans than the home team, because we just love to go and watch the team. Always got support from our fans. So it was quite a rivalry. We played on Southern's campus, and we played on Gremlins campus. You know, I don't know if they still had that hill uh, in the sitting area. They didn't have enough bleachers at Gremlin, so they piled up a lot of dirt, and it had a hill.
And that was the seating area.
Yeah, as kids would sit on that hill. But it was fun. It was fun. I remember in 1961, I believe, we went to Gremlin, and when we got off the bus that Friday, I guess about 1:00, they had turned school out. They were having a big party at the Union Building. They were talking about how bad they were going to beat Southern. They had big athletes. They always had big athletes. At the time, had a big guy named Ernie Ladd.
Oh yeah, that went on to play the NFL.
You heard of Ernie Ladd and Buck Buchanan.
Both.
Buck Buchanan was also at Gremlin and when I was at Southern. And man, those guys were hard to block. But Coach Mumford had different kinds of blocks that you could still get the best of them. He'd cross the block. He'd have the man on the one side to block him, and you block the other man's man, and vice versa. We would trap them, and we ran a lot of sweeps on the outside because we always kept some real fast runners. We would always run around to the right and around to the left. That meant that these big boys had to run behind the players to catch them. We would always play Gremlin the second game of the season. That made us play them in September when it was 100 degrees. We played during the day. So what you do, you just run them a lot and get them tired. When they're tired, then you can win. That was a part of the strategy that Coach Mumford had, you know. And we would run two teams. We would play one team for 7.5 minutes, then you play another team 7.5 minutes. That's your first quarter.
Okay.
Then you do the same thing the second quarter. Half come out, you do the same thing the third quarter. And by the time the fourth quarter came around, the team that you were playing was so tired, they didn't care who won. They just wanted the game to get over. So it was good. It was I enjoyed it. I hated to end my athletic career, but God had some other things for me to do. But I'm so glad that Southern University and the athletic department was in part of his plan for me.
So after you graduated, post-graduation, what did you go on to do post-graduation from Southern University?
Well, I wanted to play professional football.
Okay.
But I was too small.
Still too small.
I still had problems gaining weight. So I registered with the Placement Bureau at Southern. And I began to get jobs because I had a major in physical education, but my minor was in math.
Okay.
And they needed math and science teachers everywhere. So before I graduated from Southern, I got this call from Washington Parish, another one from East Feliciana Parish, one from Iberville Parish. I got a lot of inquiries. And I even went on interviews. But I don't know if, let me see, when you were school, I think the school for the blind had moved.
Right.
Okay. Well, anyway, school for the blind was right next to Southern Lab. I had this lady that called me and told me that she needed a math teacher and a physical education teacher. I was interested in teaching. And I said, I don't know anything about blind people, but I'll come over and talk with you. And I went over and talked with Ms. Theus, and she took me up to Dr. Clark's office, and he was not in, but Dr. Netterville said, well, Ms. Theus, if this is the man that you want, let's hire him. So I got hired at the School for the Blind at Southern University. I wanted to stay in the area because my wife was still in school, and I wanted to, wanted her to finish. And I wanted to get a master's degree also. And we were living right near the university. So why leave when you have all of these opportunities? So that began. And eventually the state of Louisiana decided to merge the school, because that was a school for the blind at Southern University for Black kids. That was one downtown on Government Street for white kids. So the state of Louisiana decided to merge the two. And we had to close the one at Southern and move down to Government Street. Well, eventually I became the principal of the school. And that's when I retired. I retired as principal of the school they changed the name, School for the Visually Impaired, at Government Street.
Now you were were you the first Black principal?
No, I wasn't. I was not the first Black. There were a couple of others before me, but there were a few, but I think two of them. But I think I was principal longer. Than any of the others. So good experience. Now, so I retired in 1998, but I didn't stop working. I just started volunteering.
Yeah, that's normally what people do.
And it's best for you to stay involved,
stay active. Absolutely. Absolutely.
My wife and I became chaplains at a local hospital. And that was an awesome experience. The only reason that we're not doing it now is because of COVID. But when COVID is cleared up, we'll probably go right back to doing the same thing. We were also foreign missionaries. We were missionaries at Dominica, West Indies.
Nice.
In the Caribbean for 9 years.
What was that like?
Oh, awesome. Awesome. The people are very gracious. They're poor, but they're very gracious, and they love people. And they were so glad to have us to come and share with them. And some of the most beautiful sights you've ever seen. And but the children, we were teaching vacation Bible school for a week every year. It was awesome. Kids came from villages miles away just to participate in the vacation Bible school that we were conducting. And that's some awesome experiences that we had. We've had God to arrange circumstances that made some things happen that you wouldn't believe would happen. We had flights arranged that couldn't be arranged. We had living accommodations arranged that was not supposed to even exist. But all of those things. So we've had fun. And my wife of 57 years right there, hanging in there with me.
Good old Jaguar, listen.
Oh, yes.
So now, do you remember or do you recall the time when Muhammad Ali and Ray Charles visited campus at Southern?
Yes, let me tell you about Muhammad Ali. Well, in 1960, Muhammad Ali became Olympic champion, heavyweight champion, boxing champion. It must have been immediately he turned pro. He bought him a red Cadillac, and he decided to ride. He got this fight with Sonny Liston. They were supposed to fight in Miami. He leaves Louisville, and he and his brother and some more guys decided they were going to drive to Miami. They circled by black colleges on their way down there, and they came by Southern. Now you're talking about a loud mouth. This guy had a loud mouth. Oh, he was talking about how pretty he was, and how fast he was, and nobody can touch him. He look at my face. Nobody's touched my face. I'm going down to Miami, and I'm gonna beat that big bear. That's what he called Sonny Liston. I'm gonna beat that bear so bad. And then we were yelling at him. You know, we came out of Union Building. He's standing up on the back of his red Cadillac. He called it Tomato Red. He said, I'm gonna go down to Miami and I'm gonna beat that big bear. And now you'll see. Oh man, we tell him, oh boy, Sonny Liston's gonna knock you out in the first round. You're gonna see. Well, he went down to Miami. He knocked Sonny Liston out in the first round. Well, I guess a couple of weeks later, you know what happened? He came back through Southern University.
And said he told y'all so.
I told you.
I told y'all so.
I told you, reciting poetry and all that kind of stuff. I told you I was going to beat him. And he continued. And every chance that he got, he stopped at Southern University. I don't know if all those you pretty girls caused him to come through Southern University, but he would he would make a beeline to Southern University and to talk to us and tell us how good he was, and you know what the situation was, but he also encouraged us to stay in school and get involved, you know, and be the best that you can be. And he was our age, or younger, but he still had the same message. You stay in school. You do the best you can do. Interesting. A great highlight. Now, Southern University provided a lot of enrichment for us. I met Martin Luther King at Southern University. He was invited to speak at a Lyceum series that they had when I was a freshman. You had to pick up a card in the office and turn that card in at Vesper. We had a Lyceum or whatever. They had a program, a religious program. You had to turn your card. So it was required for freshmen to go to church, and they would have these famous speakers, Benjamin Mays and Martin Luther King, and all of those kinds. College made a difference in your life. College changed us. We didn't change the college. The college changed us. When a young person left home and went to college, he came back different, or she came back different, had different values, because that was the responsibility of our faculty and our staff at the university. So we were exposed to a lot. I remember one year Coach Mumford had was Jim Brown. He was a famous running back for the Cleveland Browns back then. Jim Brown came and spoke to one of our athletic banquets, and Wilma Rudolph at the time was an outstanding track person, and so we had a lot of exposure.
Who have you not met, Mr. Davis? Who have you not met?
Well, I haven't met Obama, President Obama yet, but I had one of my good friends that met him. And she came back and told me about it.
You have had a wonderful story.
Well, I tell you, it's been a joy. It's been a joy, and it's been a joy sharing it with my family, and especially this is mountaintop for me. When Nalenia called me and said, "Dad, someone wants you on their podcast." For what? Just talk. All you have to do is talk. Well, you know I'm not that much of a talker. Yes, you are. You can talk enough, you know. Well, anyway, I appreciate the opportunity.
Now, so you had 4 daughters. All 4 went to Southern.
4 daughters, yes. All went to
All
Southern.
4 played sports.
All four played sports. Yes,
What was that
many
like?
of them played more than one sport.
What was that like?
Well, we started out when they were in elementary, middle school,
Mm-hmm.
and my wife would have to go with one in one direction. I'd have to go in another direction. Then we'd pick one up, and then we'd go to another one. So we stayed busy. Everywhere our children went, we went. We stayed all around. They played in high school, middle school. They played in high school. Same thing. When they weren't being treated right,
Mm-hmm.
Mama and Daddy were there. I'll have to let Nalinia tell you about it, some of those experiences that she had. but we had to, you have to, you have to follow your kids, and you have to
Absolutely.
take care of whatever the problems are. That's some problems that your children can't take care of.
Absolutely. My parents were
Parents have
the
to
exact way.
do that. Yes.
Absolutely.
Parents have to do that for them, and so it was a grand experience. But we are some of the most proudest parents that you would find anywhere, because our children responded. We have I got 2 teachers, I got a doctor, and I got a lawyer, and we just thank God for them and what He has guided them through, and so grand experience, grand.
Now, someone asked, do you have any photos of your playing days with Coach Mumford?
Yes, I do.
I didn't know they were going to ask that, but DeWarn would be that person to ask. He's one of those people. So I didn't know he was going to ask that, but he did ask.
Okay.
Did you have some of those pictures from your playing days with Coach Mumford?
Yes. We know, back then we didn't get a lot of media coverage.
Correct.
Black schools didn't get a whole lot of media coverage.
Mm-hmm.
But we did take individual pictures, and so well, somebody's bringing one now.
Okay.
Off the wall. But yes, we have some. We have some things. We had, of course, we had the yearbook.
Correct.
And we had the snapshots in the yearbook of the teams, the football team, basketball team, track team, all that kind of thing. The group pictures, but I have individual pictures also, and my wife is getting some of those for you.
Okay. And so while she's doing that, I'll ask you this. What do you feel, how important do you feel that it is to consider, or for athletes period, to consider HBCUs and to play for historically Black colleges?
The best experience that you can have, in my opinion, for a Black person is to be at HBCU. People care about you. They're personable. They will give you the benefit of the doubt. They will carry you along. When I was a freshman and sophomore, they had what they call the junior division at Southern. Had they abolished that when you came along?
No, it was still there. In '99, it was still hanging around.
I knew some guys that had problems reading and writing and doing math. They put those fellows in the junior division, and in 4 and 5 years, they were ready to graduate and compete with anybody in the world. That's what a Black HBCU will do for you.
Right.
I've had relatives that have sent their children to other schools. They didn't get that. They just were in the crowd. If you made it, okay. Yep. If you didn't make it, okay. But if you go to that HBCU, they care about you because they know what you need. And they'll help you. If you help yourself, they'll help you.
Absolutely.
Like I said, when you're ready, when you leave an HBCU, you're ready for the world.
Absolutely.
Let me share this with you. Can
everybody see that picture?
That's That's Nat Davis.
You look the same.
Well, thank you.
You look the same, minus the glasses. You look the same.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
That's actually that's a great picture. Oh, he had to give us another one. Now he had to give us one that he was in the stands there. Oh wow.
Yeah.
And you said that was what year?
1959, 60, 61, 62.
Okay. Okay. Oh wow. That's some history there.
Yes.
That's
yes.
some true history there.
Yes.
Wow.
And if I had another child, they would go to Southern.
And the next one, the last one would go right on to Southern.
Yeah. My kids had scholarships other places, and Nalenia, oh my goodness, she must have had a trunk full of invitations to go this place and that place. And I said, that's good. We even went when she was a senior in high school. We went to Texas A&M and LSU and all of those places. And they said, well, we make this final decision. You're going to go to Southern University because they have exactly what we need.
Mm-hmm.
And it has worked out.
Mm-hmm.
for all of my kids. So yes, I would recommend an HBCU.
I do. I absolutely do. And I mean, we see the opportunities that are now happening with like the HBCU combine. We see that the HBC, they're having a legacy bowl next year that the Black College Football Hall of Fame is actually putting on in New Orleans. So those opportunities are starting to rise for our athletes, and things are starting to open and come open for our athletes that, you know, didn't happen, say maybe 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And so now they're getting more of an opportunity, as we can see ESPN, ESPN3. They're able to be on on a national level where people can actually see what athletes are doing at our historically Black colleges and see, you know, the talent, and they're showcasing their talent through pro days and actually getting those shots and getting those chances to actually showcase you know, what they did. No, I didn't forget this. Now I heard you were inducted into the Southern University Hall of Fame.
Oh, okay.
I didn't forget that. I did not forget that. What was that feeling like?
Let me tell you about that. You know, ever since I left Southern, I've been getting these invitations to be a part of the Hall of Fame.
Okay.
But it was not that important to me.
Mm-hmm.
So my daughters go to Southern University, and then they started getting invitations to be in the Hall of Fame. So I had one that said, Daddy, I got this invitation to be a member of Southern University Athletic Hall of Fame, but I'm not going to do it unless you do it with me. So it was a surprise to me. Actually, they thought they could, she and their mothers and sisters, they thought that they could give them all the information that they needed before, without me knowing. So I went to, I was at church one morning, and a member of the committee said, congratulations, Brother Davis. You have been nominated to be in the Southern University Athletic Hall of Fame. I said, what?
You didn't even know what was going on.
I said, are you sure? Me? He said, yeah, you invited, your name's on the list. And, you know, I said, well, I didn't do it. I don't know who did it. So I asked my wife. Now, she had been knowing for 6 months, and the rest of them had been knowing. Nobody told me.
So everybody else knew but you.
Everybody but me. So I had to scramble and get information in. But my younger daughter, Nathaniel, and I, and all of my daughters could very well have been in Southern University Hall of Fame because they were quite exceptional athletes. But anyway, Nathaniel and I were presented in November of 2018, I believe. We were inducted into the Southern University Hall of Fame. grand experience. Grand
To
experience.
go in together. That's
Like I
awesome.
say, you know, God had a great plan for me and my family. I tell
That's
you.
awesome. That is
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, see, she told me you did, but she didn't tell me she did too. She
Yeah.
left.
Oh, she left herself out, huh?
She left herself out.
Oh my goodness.
She left herself out, as humble as ever. She left
Wow.
herself out, but she did tell me about you. She
Oh
did.
my goodness. Well, she was an outstanding athlete. But like I said, all of them are. They played volleyball, played in high school, basketball. They played and outstanding academians also. But didn't tell you about herself. Okay, Nalini and I were inducted, and her speech was longer than mine. They only gave us they gave us 2 minutes, 4 minutes to speak, and when you start getting past your 4 minutes, they start turning the music up. They turn the music up loud to drown you out. So you
went past her time.
But interesting. Very interesting. We enjoyed it.
So that means we're gonna have to pull her on next. So she didn't want to tell us. We got to pull her on here. The next show, we got to pull her on. Since she didn't want to tell us about herself, we got to pull her in when she has some time.
She has an outstanding story. I'm not gonna tell it. I'm gonna let her tell it.
Maybe we'll get her and her sisters on at the same time. So you have 4 daughters. 4 daughters.
4 daughters.
My dad had 4 daughters too. I felt for my poor dad. I was
your dad's blessed. 4 daughters.
4 daughters. 2 twins and 2 older daughters. I have a twin sister and I have 2 older sisters.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what. I wouldn't trade with anybody at any time. Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Precious.
Well, you had an awesome story. So many great things that happened. The story is just, I cannot believe so many great things happened in that course of time. And I was going to ask you, were you recruited by any other school? Now, she told me, do you have a Jake Gaither story?
Man.
Any Jake Gaither stories?
I didn't. I tried not to go too deep into that. But now he's the one that wrote me the letter while I was in high school to give me a scholarship at Florida A&M.
Okay.
So when I got to Tallahassee, when my brother, had me to come to Tallahassee to meet the coach and to see the campus during the Christmas holidays before I graduated from high school, I met Jake Gaither.
Okay.
And Jake, my father, grew up in Tallahassee. So I had some relatives that were kind of outlawish. All right.
He wanted you to be at FAMU.
So my daddy wanted me to be at FAMU, but Jake Gaither knew about some of my family members that were not good citizens. So I think that sort of played into him telling me that, Tallahassee, Florida A&M is not the place for you. And that's when I went back home and my friend said, come go to Southern. That's how I got to Southern. But I think Jake he did me a favor. He actually did me a favor. Like I had a chance to beat him. Good experience.
So never consider Bethune-Cookman?
No. Many of my teachers were graduated, high school teachers graduated from Bethune-Cookman. But Bethune-Cookman was a private school.
Okay.
And they didn't have a lot of money for scholarships.
Okay.
Now you couldn't. It had to be a black school. It couldn't be University of Florida and Florida State and Miami and all that, because there were state laws, and even in Louisiana, that blacks and white could not compete on the same field or court You just couldn't compete because LSU was the national champion, national NCAA champions, I think in my freshman year at Southern.
Okay.
The following year, 1960, we were Black national champions.
Mm-hmm.
Now, but of course, we couldn't play each other because of state law.
Correct.
It would have been interesting if we had played LSU. I'm looking at some of the stats from some of the players at LSU and some of the stats from some of the players at Southern.
Mm-hmm.
It would have been an interesting story.
A good matchup.
Yes, I believe so. We had running backs that could run a 100-meter dash in 10 seconds. And, you know, with 3 or 4 of those running sweeps right and left, tiring you out, you'd have a hard time. We had one of my homeboys that talked me into going to Southern, Robert Williams.
Mm-hmm.
When he went to Southern, he was very fast, and he would every time the quarterback would get the ball and try to pass it off to him, he would run off and lead the ball. He'd be so fast, he'd run off and lead the ball. So Coach Mumford said, "Hey boy, back up a step." So that means that you won't get to the ball as fast.
Mm-hmm.
So he backed up a step. He'd still run off and lead the ball. Coach Mumford said, "Boy, you know what? I'm going to give you another name." I said, "What is that, Coach?" "I'm going to call you Speedy." You go to Southern right now and ask anybody if they ever heard of Speedy Williams. And they say, "Oh, yeah, I heard of Speedy Williams. One of the fastest running backs Southern University ever had." Well, that boy lived around the corner from me. We grew up as neighbors right around the corner. We had guys like that were outstanding athletes. So it would have been a different story if we had played some of those larger schools.
Now, do you have a nickname for you?
Nat. That's it.
Okay.
Everybody called me Nat D.
Simple enough.
That's it.
Simple enough. That's simple enough. Simple enough.
Yes.
Well, Mr. Davis, I truly appreciate you for joining me today on Black College Experience to share your story. It's so many comments. It's just comments going up and down, talking about awesome story. Somebody said a family full of Hall of Famers. Really, really, really great story. Really do appreciate you for joining me here again on Black College Experience, sharing your story with not only me, but all of Jaguar Nation, because Jaguar Nation is watching this as well. So I'm sure I will get follow-up questions, but I really do appreciate it. And then, of course, it's on YouTube, too, so they can always go back and look at it in the event that it's missed. But I did send it to Nathaniel, so she knows that it's there as well. And everybody can watch it there as well if they're not watching it on Facebook Live. But again, thank you so much for joining me. And I look forward to talking to you again sometime soon.
Very good. It's been a pleasure to share with you. And we just pray that you get stronger as you go along. And thank you for sharing with everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
All right. Good night.
And bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay. Yeah, I kept trying to center you in the.
Yeah. What's going on?
That was one of the most remarkable interviews that I have actually sat down and done in a long time. And I can't thank Nalenia enough for setting this up to actually sit down and talk to her father. Just listening to some of those names, Ernie Ladd, Buck Buchanan, just Mumford, Jake Gaither. These are greats, not only HBCU greats, but just greats. And if you keep up with FAMU football, you know very well about Jake Gaither. Of course, we all know Coach Mumford. So these are greats. And then again, Ernie Ladd, you know, they went on to play, but because they went on to play professional football. So, you know, these are just greats. And again, I thank you so much, Nalinia, for connecting me with your father to actually share this story. Y'all can please share this interview. It is public, so you can share the interview. It's also on the Black College Experience page, as well as YouTube, as well as you can share it from my Facebook, because it is public. So please share this story with the rest of Jaguar Nation and your friends. We're going to do more interviews. And so thank you. I'm going to sign out because I had to get ready. I am headed over to Birmingham, Alabama tomorrow because it is HBCU combine time. So I'm always rocking and rolling. So tune in tomorrow with your girl. Black College Experience will be live on location at the University of Alabama in Birmingham as we do continue on with interviews. And I am locked and loaded with my little notepad ready to get some of those interviews locked and loaded there, ready to get more interviews from some of those guys that are actually going to be at the combine. So I'm going to try to get interviews across the board of our D1, D2 players from every conference. And we're going to see what's going on with some of those guys to see if we can get those moved on over to the NFL. It's been great. Thank you for joining Keisha Kelly, and I'll see you next time. Good night.